Okay, a very good morning for everyone. So who are joining from Europe, Malta, and Milan. There are the people are from all over the world at the moment because it's a virtual session. And thanks for joining everyone. And I think this is one of our biggest session we have ever seen because a lot of people joined. I really thank for your interest for DevOps episodes. This is one of the very interesting sessions because this is not only a single one, it's having three sessions based on the American standards, 100 level, 200 level, and 300 level. So I am Ganesh Kudikala. I am CTO of Azatec. Currently, I'm working in Milan. So I'm working for a company called Azatec Consulting in Milan. So my leadership team is myself, Ganesh, and we have my assistants organizer, Vinod. He's just graduated from Politecnico di Milano, and we have a speaker, Prasanjit Singh. Thanks everyone. Let's get started. So I told you everyone in the meetup I shared that it could be an interactive session because I am asking you each and everyone about the DevOps questions. It could be a more advanced, okay? Just be kidding, huh? Okay, so I welcome Prasanjit Singh. He is the director, cloud and DevOps at Stars Play at Dubai, Emirates, and he is, I forgot to tell you, he is connected from Dubai. So we have a lot of countries all over the world are connected. Somebody from Europe, somebody from Asia, somebody from UAE. A lot of people are connected all over the world. Welcome, Prasanjit Singh, and thanks for joining today. And this is one of our first presentation with you, and we really appreciate that you are accepted when we asked about speaking in our user group. You are accepted the first time, and this is really great for us. And thanks to you.
Thank you.
The agenda will be, okay. So the agenda for the today is, so we have the session which can be handled by Prasanjit Singh, and we have the quiz session. I told that we have a prize for each episode. We have 3 episodes. I forgot to tell you one of this is the first episode, which is 100 level, and we have multiple sessions, which is 200, and it will be an intermediate session, and there will be advanced, which is in depth of how DevOps in a reality. Okay, so I request everyone to be check the updates of meetup group so that you don't miss the future episode. This is our first episode. Okay, so and after the quiz you have a Q&A. So I will be opening a page where you can scan the barcode and you can ask whatever the questions you have. It could be so somebody from beginner background, somebody from advanced background. It could be okay for us. You can ask the questions whatever you have. We try our best as to answer your questions. So I would like to ask first questions to everyone. So here is the question. So I would like to know, everyone, open your phones or open your browser to scan the barcode and enter which city you are from. So it could be a really fun session so that we know everyone where you are from exactly connected. So you can scan the barcode and enter your city. Otherwise, you can go to the join at slido.com and write AWS UG Malta. So you will be opening this question to you. Okay. So before everyone, so I'll be waiting for you for a minute. Pescara, so I think Pescara is one of my friends who is connected from Pescara. He's the only one. Hey, Pescara. Thanks for joining. if you see, there are big letters which is showing Milan and Hyderabad. It's because most of the people from there connected to the art session. It's really great. Awesome, it's really great. Okay, so I'm closing the poll. I'm locking the poll. Thanks everyone for giving me the poll, and I'm closing the voting. So let's go to the next. So I request everyone to mute. For example, if unexpectedly your session is unmuted, I request everyone be muted so that it could be good for the speaker when he start the session. Okay, so also we have another exciting question that speaker wants from you is, so what do you know about DevOps? We have the next poll. So you rate yourself how much you know about DevOps. So if you are rate hard, you can rate 1 to 5%. 1 to 5, rate 1. It doesn't matter, you can rate 1 or 2. That's not a problem. It's because the speaker wants to understand how much you know about the technology so that he can start and try to help you in a better manner. Okay, that's really great. Thanks everyone for your inputs, and we are clear with a lot of people who would like to start a DevOps from introductory session. So you are in a better place where you will be starting a DevOps skill, and it will be added to your CV soon. Okay, and thanks everyone for your inputs. I'm locking the voting now. So just lock the voting. Okay, that's really great. Okay, Prasanjit Singh, it's over to you. Now you can proceed share your screen and you can start.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thanks for the introduction as well as the poll. It really helped me to understand what the level of our audience is, and that will help to speak in that manner, so that we'll start from the basics so that everyone understands and is at the same page. And as we proceed, because this is not just one episode, we'll have more of it. So I think hopefully we'll cover the entirety of like most of the things that is needed to get DevOps going, and we'll learn some tools as well, and also learn how to do that on AWS specifically. So let me start sharing my screen. Are you able to view my screen now?
Yes, you can proceed.
All right, great. Okay, so this is the first of the episodes, DevOps episodes, and my name is Prasanjit Singh. I work as the Cloud and DevOps Director at Stars Play. This is a video streaming provider similar to what Netflix is. So we are located in the Middle East, and I take care of the DevOps and cloud deployments. Why I'm here? Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption. Just I would like to start recording.
Yeah, sure. You can.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so why am I here? That is because you might be thinking, like, why is this guy here? Because he's already in DevOps, so what I am benefiting out of it? The thing is, me and Ganesh, we decided, like, since we are already doing technology, why not share it with people, so that, because when we teach or when we discuss technology, we learn twice. So teaching is like twice learning. So that is the sole reason, just to reiterate things which we learned someday from someone else. So that's you people are benefited, and maybe you have some questions from which I will learn something, or you have some scenarios or problems that you are facing from where I will learn something. So that's the sole reason. And let me give you a brief introduction into what I am involved into. I'm an AWS community builder. So what we do is we try to discuss about AWS challenges in various user groups, and try to propagate AWS cloud practices. I'm an instructor at Coursera, so I teach Docker containers and about mostly DevOps topics in Coursera. I have few courses there. Like these are, as I said, as I want to teach, I keep myself involved in these kind of activities. I speak at conferences. Recently spoke at RedisConf and also at CNCF conference about Kubernetes. And obviously I'm a DevOps practitioner. I practice DevOps at my work, and I try to tell others to do the same, and we'll come to it in a while, like how it helps. And I have published a few papers. So I'm not an author in terms of publishing books, but I publish some research papers on auto scaling. So that is what I do. And yeah, I also share some of my DevOps tutorials in my YouTube channel, completely free, no ads or nothing. So you can have a look there as well. All right, so coming to the topic, what's the plan? The plan is here. See, in 3 episodes you won't be able to complete the entirety of DevOps, but at least we can cover the main parts and know how to work in DevOps. So that we can do. So first episode, that is today, will be a base level understanding what DevOps is, because around 40% of us are still learning or new to DevOps. So this will help, first episode. So we'll understand the fundamentals of DevOps, understand how it works, what it is, and what are the different tools, why it has become so important suddenly. It wasn't there 5 years ago. No one mentioned DevOps engineers that much, but now why is it so hot? What is CI/CD? We'll learn about containers and Docker, and today we'll also try building a pipeline using Jenkins on AWS. So that is what we'll do. It will be lots of hands-on, so you don't get bored just listening to me. So that is about the first episode. Now once we get the fundamentals, and yeah, obviously you will have a week yourself to think and read more about what was discussed today. So then next week or in the forthcoming episode when we meet, we will work a bit into the next level and understand what DevOps is and what AWS tools are there to help us implement DevOps. So we'll discuss about specifically AWS tools to build pipelines, to deploy the code, and we'll also understand about how microservices are orchestrated in AWS using these DevOps practices. So that is the plan for the second episode. And in the third session, we will take it a step further about how to create or automate creation of clusters using scripts. Like there are CloudFormation scripts and Terraform. So we'll try to learn that at a basic level initially, because having all of this suddenly will overwhelm you. So we'll have it gradually and solve questions. And as I said, if you have more questions or you want more specific level understanding, then you can always reach me out. We can have further sessions, or you can also view my channel where there are some videos, and you can even request me. I can create those videos for you, so no problem at all. So in the third session we will be doing this, building automatic deployment of infrastructure. We'll understand how Ansible scripts work. We will have a quick demo on Kubernetes and how alerts are sent, how monitoring is done using the DevOps way. So that is the plan. So today is about the fundamentals, about CI/CD containers, and about Jenkins and what are DevOps pipelines. So lot to cover. Let's get started. Okay, so what is DevOps? It is different for different people. Like as you see in this cartoon, you can see like this is a story of an elephant and blind people who are touching the elephant at different places. They imagine the elephant to be someone touches the tail and thinks it's a snake, and someone would touch the tusk and think it's like a knife, and so on. So similarly, DevOps means different things to different people. Some think that DevOps is about automation, like it's about learning some code and write some scripts so that you automate everything. Some people say DevOps is about the mixture of dev and ops, so that guy who does DevOps should know development as well as he knows how to handle servers. So some people think like that. Some people think, oh, no, it's nothing as such. It is some principle or culture like agile. So you do things in small iterations and complete it, and then you have a review or after the sprint, and you get to know what was done in the previous sprint, and then you plan for the next. So things like that. Different people imagine DevOps in different ways. But what actually is DevOps and how the meaning has changed over time? So DevOps is normally what I understand of DevOps is it is a practice or a culture. It's not about, like people say he's a DevOps engineer. That's actually a wrong understanding. Like there is nothing called DevOps engineer, because when DevOps is practiced in an organization, everyone is a DevOps person, because a developer will now work in a DevOps manner, like following the principles of DevOps. So he is also DevOps. Now ops guy will no longer do things manually. He will use scripting and automation. So even he is DevOps. So who was doing monitoring and alerting, say someone is in the NOC team who monitors servers, so he is now using DevOps tools to do that. So he becomes a DevOps. So that's how DevOps is not about a task or a job or a person. It is a culture which is embedded in an organization. So to understand it further, let me just tell you something about how software delivery works. Then we can understand what is written in this slide. Okay, so how does a normal software delivery work? Say, for example, we have a shopping website, say Amazon.com, where you have products out there. How are those products sold? There is a website. So in that website there are lots of carousels with different products mentioned. So the user will come, if he has an account, he will log in and he will check some products, go to the shopping cart, make the payment, and the product is shipped to him. So what we have in terms of software delivery.
Hi Prasanjit Singh.
Yeah.
We are not able to hear you. Sorry. Don't know. Am I only not able to hear you, or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure.
For me is not a problem. So
I can able to hear as well.
okay,
Alright.
so it's good. So maybe you can disconnect and reconnect again if you have trouble, or you can use a phone number directly call via audio.
Right. Okay, should I resume?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you can proceed.
All right. So what I was saying is, before we go deep into DevOps, let's quickly understand how software delivery works. Then we'll understand what is the place of DevOps in this? Okay, so when we were taking the example of a shopping website, so we have a website. So how was that website built? So there would be certain developers who are working on a certain technology. Say the website is built on Java or Node.js or whatever. So there would be developers who are writing code and they commit that code in a repository. Okay, so I'm talking from a very base level. So those who already know the practices, just feel free to just get a revision of it. So we write the code, we put it on a repo, that is a Git or SVN. Nowadays we just use Git, most of us. So the code is put in a repo, and then the code, if it is Java, then it needs to be built into a binary or a jar file. So there is a build process and there are some tools to build it, and once you build that, you can package it into a container or somewhere and then you deploy it. So now this process is a series of steps which can be done by different people. Like the developer will write the code, there would be someone who takes care of the build processes, there may be someone else who deploys it and someone who tests it, or someone who monitors it after the deployment. So all these steps are done separately. That is how the practice was earlier. And then what happens when we put DevOps into the picture? Then we try to automate all this. So DevOps is a full lifecycle investment. This means like you automate the entire series of steps. So it is a practice which allows you to automate it. It is not only the responsibility of one person, it is the responsibility of the entire team. So as I said, the developer, the ops guy, the monitoring guy, the tester, everyone is DevOps. There is no such one DevOps engineer. Maybe people having skill sets, we can be called as DevOps advocates or something. Like we have some skills that we can cover the entire show. We know how integrations are done, maybe we will know how test cases are added, maybe we'll know how to deploy it into the cloud and how to monitor it. So someone who has a very high level picture of the entire thing. We may not be specialists in one, but we know most of the pieces that can be joined together to build the entire thing. So for any software delivery, DevOps skills have now become very important, because someone who knows a little bit of everything can help in building the entire software in a better manner. Okay? So in order to do that, there are some processes. One of them is CI, or continuous integration, and there is another process you might have heard, CD, or continuous deployment. So before we discuss into the CI, let me show you this diagram. At least that will give you a better understanding. So this here you can see continuous delivery pipeline. So what is going on here? There is a development happening. So this is the development team who are writing the code. They put it into a source code management or the Git, and then based on the technology, the source code is built. As I said, if it is a Java, then it has to be built into a jar binary so that it can be executed. Similarly, Python, a Flask app has to be compiled into a Flask and deployed, and then packaged into Docker containers, and then deployments can be done. So this series of steps is known as a pipeline. Okay, and finally when the code is built and tested, it is shipped into production. So we'll come to that in a while. So again, I am going back to the CI. So in the DevOps, there are two practices that help in building a delivery pipeline. As you already now know what a pipeline is. So a pipeline is a series of steps that has to be executed for a software to be delivered, like from a developer's desktop to the production server. Whatever series of steps goes on, so that series is called a pipeline. Now the pipeline can be deployed using two mechanisms. One is the CI and CD. So how is that conducted? CI is the process in which you do not have to wait till the completion of your entire project objectives to deliver your project. For example, if we look few years ago, like before, most of you might have worked on agile methodologies, like you go for sprints and you build something in small iterations and then complete it. Earlier, few years ago, people used to work in a model called waterfall model, where you get the requirements. Say you have a mobile application to build, a game application. So you just understand the project requirements and then start building it, and then once it is completely built, it is compiled and sent for testing, and once it is tested, it is released. But this process was found to be ineffective. Why? Because when the development is being done, then the testing team is waiting for the delivery, because they have nothing to test. It will be tested only after the development is completed. And when the development is completed, the testing team is busy working, but the developers are waiting, because until the test report comes back with the bugs, they have nothing to fix. So there was a waste of manpower in this way, using the waterfall model. And also you have to wait for long periods to deploy something. Like for example, every month maybe there would be one deployment, because the rest of the month was spent by different teams doing their tasks. So DevOps comes with the solution here. So what DevOps does is, you have a continuous integrations. So how does it work? First, what happens, this developer starts writing his code, and then he checks them into commits them into a Git repository or a version control system. And then from there, an automatic build of the code is initiated. So that is happening using some tools which we will discuss. So DevOps enables tools to build the source code as soon as it is committed. And once the build is done, then the build is sent for testing. And again, the testing also occurs in a automated manner. Test cases are included in the code and added to the pipeline, again by the DevOps tools. And after the tests, if they pass, there is a alert sent to the developer that this test cases has passed and it is ready for deployment. And if it fails, again an alert is sent that the test case has failed or the build has failed, and the developer can make the fixes. So since everything is automated in this process, there is some initial hard work, but after a while, once it is automated, it makes life very easier for the developer. Like they make their changes, they deploy, and then they get, within minutes, they get the result of the deployment, whether it was successful or not. So this process, in which continuously, as soon as the Git commit is done, immediately you get a response whether the build has passed or not. So this kind of a deployment is called CI, continuous integration. So continuously you are integrating your code to the main code repository and continuously building your artifacts. So here, for those who are completely beginners, let me again tell you a few things about software build process. When we have our raw code in the repository, by repository we mean a central location where we store our code which we are working on. Okay, and why is it a central repository? Because we might have multiple developers in a team. So if one per se, I'm building that website, someone is working on the login module, someone is working on a landing page, someone is working on the payment gateway, but we are all working for the same website. So there all the code needs to be merged somewhere. So that repository where all the code from different developers is merged is called the version control system or source control system. So that is Git or Bitbucket, GitHub, you might have heard of that. And once the code goes in there, you can build that code into a binary, and once the build is complete, you can tag that build, like for example version 1.0 alpha, beta, or whatever. So that build is then stored somewhere. That place is called an artifact, like artifact repository, and the build image that you make is called an artifact in the CI language. So artifact repositories, there are some examples, I'll talk about it. So now you just remember there is a version control system where all the code from different developers go, and then there is a build that happens to build one binary. By binary I mean, for example, when you're installing app in your Android mobile or in Apple, you might have seen the app is actually a file .apk or something extension, or when you are installing a package in your Windows system, it is a .exe file. So that file which is compiled after building your code is called the artifact. So even artifacts are tagged and stored somewhere, so that if something goes wrong with the current version, you can always roll back to the previous version. Say I rolled a new feature but something went wrong, so I can always go back to the previous version only if I have the previous version built and tagged and stored somewhere. So that process is what we are following in CI, where continuously these things are happening and done automatically. Now how it is done, we'll come to it very quickly. So the next step after CI is the CD, where it is the continuous delivery. So it's the same pipeline actually, like till half of it. Okay, we have a question. Is the compiled output of the image called artifact, and what about the manifest? Okay, let me tell you. Once it is compiled, you call it artifact. So manifest is a, you can say, a index where you define like what are the various dependencies, and from where you can pull in those dependencies to build that entire artifact. Okay, so if you are building a jar artifact, so the manifest is a file, like in a book you have an index page where it is written, now this is the entire book, but in page number 1 you can get this, in page number 2 you get this chapter, and so on. So the manifest is, you can say, it will talk about various dependencies and where to locate them and so on. So if someone is building a Java file from Maven, so you will have a pom.xml file. So these kind of different manifests are obtained. All right, so coming back to the CD, continuous delivery pipeline. So till the half of the steps which we already discussed, that is CI or continuous integration, and from there on there is something called continuous delivery. So once the artifact is ready, but in order to make it deployable, you need to have a server ready somewhere in a production or any other environment. So that environment has to be ready. So in DevOps way, we don't have someone go and manually create the environment. We have scripts to build that environment. Okay, so if it is, say, a Java and you want to deploy it on a Tomcat server on Linux, so building that Linux server can be done automatically, deployment process can be done automatically, and then you can even containerize it or have a Docker image and deploy it. So the entire process can be done automatically using some scripts. So this CI pipeline, along with which also has features of deployment to any environment, is called the CD. So that's why we normally call it the CI/CD pipeline, where continuous integration as well as deployment is done. Some places where you do not, like there are some organizations where CI is there, build is there, but the deployment will be done manually. So there you just call it a CI pipeline, but CI/CD means there should be an automated deployment as well. All right, so how do we do that? I was saying there are some tools which we can use to do that, but what are those tools? Actually, there are many such tools. Okay, so we'll just talk about the most famous ones out there, because learning one of them helps you to learn, you can figure out the rest of them. So there is no need to learn each and every tool out there. There would be hundreds of DevOps tools nowadays, and every day there is something getting added. So learning the basics will help you understand any other thing that is there. So one of those tools which is actually a framework for building pipelines, is called Jenkins. So we'll learn about that now, and in the next episode we'll also learn the AWS alternative of this one. Like, Jenkins is an open source tool. If someone is on a cloud native project where they only allow you to do everything on AWS and not use any open source tools, there are certain projects where you have these kind of constraints, then you also know how to do it. So that we'll do in the next one. All right, so coming back, so what happens when we build in Jenkins? The same process. This is again the pipeline. So the developer will push the code into a repository, can be GitHub, and then if it is a Java, for example, you can use Maven to test and build and even and then deploy. So the entire process is orchestrated by Jenkins. So we will see in a while, when I show you the demo, how that orchestration is done and how we go about to deploy it. All right, so in the DevOps pipeline, at various stages, there are various tools that are used. Okay, here some common tools are mentioned. Like, for example, when you are writing or committing the code, you are using Git as the repository. It can be GitLab, it can be Bitbucket, it can be GitHub. So all those are version control systems. Then when you build it, you can use Maven or Gradle, or there are some tools from Nexus which can be used to build and store your artifacts. And then there are test phases where you can use various test cases which can be deployed on multiple environments and clouds, and then you release them using Jenkins again, and when you release, you get your notifications also. You can have Slack notifications. In the third session, I'll show you how to get release notifications on Slack as alerts. So whenever there is a new release, you can have a notification sent to the team that version 2.0 is released now, and these are the release notes, like what are the new features coming in. So that can come automatically from the pipeline also. So there are various tools to do this. Similarly, for deploying, when the environment becomes a constraint, like say for example, some developers say it is working on my laptop but not in the server, or say the server has CentOS some version and the laptop is on Mac, or someone is using Windows. So there can be discrepancies where certain thing works on a certain environment and not on the other. So to resolve that, you can also containerize it using Docker. So that is another tool from DevOps perspective for deployment. And then for automating certain things or configurations, you can use Ansible, most popular right now. There is also something called Chef and Puppet. That was also there, but now a bit getting losing its popularity. Ansible is taking over nowadays. And there are orchestrators for containers like Kubernetes and ECS in AWS, and there are monitoring tools like Grafana, Prometheus, and log monitoring tools like Graylog, and there is another popular one not mentioned here, that is ELK Stack, Elasticsearch, Logstash, Kibana. So these are some tools you will hear more often, and you might be thinking now, how will I cover all these tools and know all of them? It will take a long time. So for that you have to go through various articles, videos, and slowly learn. So don't get overwhelmed or take everything at a time. For now, it is enough to know one tool for each process. Like you want to build and deploy something, so you can just know one tool for everything. And slowly, once you are mastered these tools, and then you can take your time to have a look at other tools. For example, say for configuration management, I know Ansible well, but I do not know Chef that much. I have just seen some of the scripts and how they work. So that doesn't mean I cannot work in DevOps, because I can use any tool to get the same work done, and if given some time I can also master this. So take that approach yourself. Like, tools are just something which you can master in a few days, but the main practice and the reason why you are doing it, that should be your purpose, like how to learn that and understand that. Similarly, when we come to DevOps on AWS, we have to build that same pipeline which we saw some time ago, that was built on Jenkins. So the same thing can be built on AWS using various tools like code deploy, code commit, and code pipeline. So AWS has some tools which you can use to build, deploy, and also have your repository. So this is something which we are going to cover in the second episode, only how to do that only on AWS, and not using any open source tools. So this is what is about DevOps on AWS. But now, before we go on and do a hands-on on the pipelines, I just want to give you a brief understanding on what containers are, because before we understand Jenkins, okay, we have a question. Let me have a look. This is the basic replacement for Bitbucket, right? So when we are talking about AWS, code commit basically allows you to have a Bitbucket kind of a repository or a GitHub kind of a repository, so that you do not have to go outside of AWS, because maybe there is a sector where it is a banking application or something very critical, and they don't want to use any open source stuff there, and they have a contract with AWS or any cloud provider that we will remain inside your periphery of the cloud, and we will use only cloud native tools, so it is secure and completely internal. So there might be situations like this. So then we have to learn how DevOps is done on AWS, and there are similar tools in other public clouds as well. Like, as a DevOps practitioner, you have to keep your mind open. Like, there are tools on Azure do the same things, only the names are different, maybe some command line differences are there. So you're right, this is just a replacement of the same things that Bitbucket does for code versioning. Similarly, for Jenkins, we have this code pipeline and code deploy modules which do the same things that Jenkins does. But why we are doing the Jenkins today at the basic level, the reason is because we want to understand without going anywhere and just doing open source, how can we practice DevOps? Because that would be the first step for anyone working in. And then once you see some pipelines, understand how they work, then you can move on to practice that on a cloud. Okay, coming back to containers. So before we go on to pipelines, I just wanted to have one slide and talk about containers a little bit, because nowadays Docker and containers is very useful to practice DevOps. So we should know, if you already are using it, very good. Otherwise we can have a separate session, because this is in itself a different topic, to know what a container is and how it is orchestrated, what Kubernetes is. So that can be a entirely separate topic. But now I'll just give you a brief overview to understand what it is and how it helps, and because we'll need that in the demo, so that's why you need to have some understanding. So what is a container? Before looking at the diagrams, just look at this picture. Like, you might have seen these containers which carry goods shipped from one place to another. So what do they do basically? They isolate things. Like, if I have some, say, clothes in one of the container and I have fish in some of the other, I do not want both of them to be mixed up and get soiled. So that's why or say, this is my product, this is someone else's product, so I do not want my goods to be mixed with someone else's, and I'll have to sort it out later on. So that is why we use containers. So containers, basically, whenever you hear about containers, just imagine when someone asks you, what is a container, why do we need them? First thing that should come into your mind is for isolating. Like, you have your application, you want it to isolate from the others. Okay, why isolation? Because see here, when I am talking about any of this concept, just think that you want to understand and put it into practice. We are not here to remember definitions and use and talk about that on the interviews. We are here to really understand what it is. So okay, coming back to containers, whenever someone asks you about a container, you think it is for isolation. Isolation of what? Isolation of your application, isolation of your resources. Okay, for example, say you have a big server, and on that server you have two applications running. One of them is, say, identity service, which helps you to key people to log in into your website. Say there is another application running which displays your say the front page or the landing page of your website. So there are two components in your website. One is the landing page. When the person writes your website name, he lands into that page, and then if he clicks on the login, the request goes to your login or the identity page. So now these two are there in one server. Say you do not have containers, they are both on the one server. Now, due to some memory leak or some bad code issue on the identity, whenever many people are logging in at the same time, the identity is eating up all the memory of the server. So your landing page becomes slow. So the new customer who hasn't even logged in, the page doesn't open for him. It's just loading forever. So will he have a good experience there? But you already have a big server. You would want the landing page to continue as it is, because the landing page doesn't have any bugs. It is good. But due to the other failure, you are facing the problem on the landing page. So in these kind of scenarios, containers help to isolate. So that is one of the main reasons containers were formed, to isolate resources. But now they have become very important because they provide many other advantages. One of them is, apart from isolation, they are providing you a platform to host your applications very quickly, because containers can spin up within seconds. So very quickly you can spin up a container. Just imagine if you had to set up an environment on a server manually, how much time it will take. Like you have to build a server, install the operating system, and then install the packages required and so on. So that takes time. So here containers, everything is baked into an image and quickly you can build it. Now you would be thinking, what is the difference between then containers and virtual machines? We already have EC2 instances, so how is it different, and how can we differentiate between them? So here let me tell you, like in a virtual machine you have to install a guest operating system on the hypervisor. Like when you have to have a virtual machine, say you have a virtual box installed in your system, and then inside the virtual box you install Ubuntu or some operating system, and then inside that you install your applications. Or say you install VMware, that is the hypervisor, and then you install some operating system, and over that you install your packages and application. But in case of containers, you do not have to have a hypervisor separately. You are sharing the host OS. Like if it is your laptop, you just install Docker engine, and then on that you can install your Docker images. You don't have to build a separate virtual machine for it. So that's why it is fast, and you can just pull the image from somewhere and quickly build it. So that is what containers are all about. So they quickly help to do deployment. Okay, so all right, are the containers a Linux thing, or does it make sense to use containers on an OS on which you are planning to have more than one application? You're not planning to have more than application. Okay, let me answer the first one. Containers are not a Linux thing anymore. Earlier they used to be, like the Docker containers only used to work on Linux, but now it runs on Windows, and the extensively Windows support has come over. So with the PowerShell and Microsoft supporting C groups, there is something called C groups in the kernel that allow you to build containers for an operating system. So now it is for Windows as well, but the Windows image, like in some versions of Windows maybe it might not be running, but it is now a Windows thing too. So if you have a latest version of Windows, and you can install a Docker desktop on it and have your containers running. Now, does it make sense to use containers on an OS on which you're not planning to have more than? Yeah, you can use containers anywhere actually. Like if you have one application, you can use it. Why does it make sense? Because when you are containerizing something, it becomes easy for you to migrate that thing. Then you would not fear to get logged in on one cloud or one hosting provider, because your everything was set up there. Okay, and so when you build a container, it becomes portable. So tomorrow if I ask you to move your application to some other server, you would not hesitate. You would just take the container image and deploy it on a new server. It will take a few seconds to do that. I'm saying seconds. And if you are doing it on a standalone server, and so here resource is not the problem, but containerizing helps in portability. So that is the problem that gets solved. So that's why containers are more useful. Also, there is another reason of using containers, that is it provides scalability. By scalability I mean, say you have a huge traffic, suddenly there is a Christmas sale or something going on and you get huge traffic, and if you are on a physical server, then you would be building more servers and adding it under the load balancer. So building that new server will require you to create an image AMI of your existing VMs and create more servers. So that will take some time. at least it will take hours to do that, like taking an image, taking 15-20 minutes, adding new servers, attaching to the load balancers, and then get serving your traffic. But when it is containers, and when you are using some orchestrator with the container like Kubernetes or ECS, then what you can do immediately, you can scale up to hundreds of container instances. So there are advantages, so it makes sense to do that. Like you can have containers all the time for modern applications. And for existing, there are certain old applications, like you might visit some customers who have some applications which are old and do not and cannot be even moved into a container. There are certain situations where that happens. You cannot even containerize them. So in those cases, you have to keep using VMs, but wherever you can, you should prefer using containers. All right. Okay, so let's get back to the hands-on. So what we'll be doing now, we'll be playing around with Docker containers. So what I'll do, I will install Docker very quickly and show you how it works, because as I said, it requires an entire different episode, but quickly we'll learn how containers work, and then we'll install Jenkins. So I'll show you how to build a Jenkins server, and then we'll create some pipelines, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's do that. It should take around 15-20 minutes. So let's this is the AWS account, so I'm just going to launch an instance. So I'm selecting this Amazon Linux. And I'm selecting the free tier, so you can do that as well when you want to do that. And let me just check if there is something which we need to change here. Not needed. Let me increase the storage to 15 gigs. Tag, we can just add a tag, Jenkins demo. Security group, I had already created a security group which has some ports open, like 80, where we will deploy our demo application. 8080, this port is where Jenkins will run, and these are some monitoring application ports, and 22 is the SSH port. So I have opened those ports. So review and launch. So I think we are all good. Let's launch this VM. There is a key pair which you have to add when you are doing it for the first time, and launch it. So once the instance will be up, we can then SSH into it, and then we can try building our pipeline. Okay. So it is running. Let me go to a terminal. I'm coming to the questions in a while. This is the key, and what I am doing here is I am trying to log in into that system which I just created. and I copied the IP address. So here we are inside the system. Now we will log in as root so that we have the administrative privileges. So what I'm going to show you now is we'll try to install Docker, and I'll show you some Docker basics, and then we'll install Jenkins. So first command, when you have a new server, you should normally do a yum update. If there is something to get updated, it will update. If there's nothing, then it's fine. Then I'll install Docker. Simple yum install Docker. So that will install Docker. Press Y to agree. Okay, those of you are thinking like whatever commands I am typing, if you miss out, we'll have a recorded session, as well as I'll share you this link. Whatever commands are being used, I have also listed it here in a gist. So I'll share you this link. So whatever I am doing, it is already here. So you don't have to remember or anything. You can always refer this and use to copy paste, because no one can remember URLs and all, so you can know the steps, but the main thing is understanding what is being done. So you just focus on what is being done. So first command was installing Docker. So once Docker is installed, just check whether Docker is running or not. Systemctl status Docker. So it's not running, it says dead. So let's start it. Start, and then if you check the status, it's now running. So if Docker is running, you will be able to do commands like docker ps, where you can see the status of anything. So we don't have anything running out here, so we don't see any status. Now for example, say I want to just run a simple image on Docker, anything, a web server, say Apache web server. So Docker, you can do you can pull a Apache image, Docker pull httpd. So that will pull a Apache web server image. And if you want to run a Docker image, so that is how easy it is. Once you have that image, you can pull it, and then you can just run it, Docker run. This will run it as a daemon or keep it in the background, and -p is where you want to run the image on which port. So I am just running it on port 80, and this is the mapping of the port, like on the external IP to your internal Docker interface where it is listening, and then the name of the image. That's all. So now if we do a docker ps, we can see the Docker is running. So you can even test it. So what is the IP of our server? Our IP is this one, 54. This. So if I go to port 80, by default HTTP is port 80, so it says it works. So if you want to kill a Docker image or stop it, so you can just docker rm, that will remove the completely the Docker container that is running. So here it is removed, and now if I refresh, this will be gone because the server is no longer running. Okay, so that is how you run a simple Docker image. Now Docker can also run some complex applications which will take you time to install. For example, I want to monitor that server, so I can install something like netdata. So there is a tool called netdata. So netdata, you can just search netdata Docker image. So here, if I go to this link, I'll share this link as well. So here you see the Docker command is already there, like how to run this Docker image net data with its all its way different settings. All right, like which volumes to be mounted, which port to be listened, and so on. So you just copy that and run it. So it will try to pull that net data image, and this net data monitors your server performance. So that is how monitoring is done, and which port it is listening on, 19999. So let's get back and write the port number here. So now you can see we have a monitoring dashboard up and running. So it just took a few seconds to set up a monitoring dashboard for a server. So it is that easy. Like once you have scripts and images in place, you can automate it and you start getting your telemetry data and everything. Okay, so that was about how Docker basically functions. There is a lot more to Docker, but we'll cover it. Now we'll just focus more on the pipelines and how to create a pipeline. I think I'm running out of time, so let's get and build Jenkins. Okay, so in order to run Jenkins, you have to install Java first, and then Jenkins would be installed, and then you have to also add Jenkins user to the Docker group to be able to deploy stuff. Okay, so how it is done, as I said, I'll share you this link where we have the commands to do that. So first, there are some questions, let's cover that. Shifting application is nothing, but while you are trying to deploy the application, you will create a Docker file. Yeah, again here the Docker file is again like the manifest, as I said, where it is defined how to create the image. So if you have an image, that is okay, but Docker if you have some custom settings or changes, then you should have a Docker file in your repository, and then you have these commands to build that file. So Docker file can be built into an image and the image can be deployed. So that is it. Yeah, and you can shift it on a Windows. So you are right. But when someone is trying to understand, like for a beginner, they have to know like what an image is and how to run it, because just introducing a Docker file out of nowhere will not make more sense. So
no,
that,
I think sorry for the interruption, Prasanjit.
Yeah.
So this was answered. I think Shiva was answered to Rajesh. So it was the
okay,
chart.
okay, all right.
Maybe you can directly go to the
okay, the last one.
one.
Okay, why would you use net data? Yeah, again we are we have lots of choices. Like we can use net data, we can use CloudWatch. As I said, today we are focusing on some simple tools with which we can get started doing stuff on DevOps. And then when you are on a cloud native environment and you do not want to use anything but AWS, you can use CloudWatch. You can use anything that is only available inside. So net data is similar to what CloudWatch is doing. So just another way of doing it and demonstrating how you can just use Docker to have a monitoring setup. Okay, what is the main difference between Docker and container? In what scenario will use these two in real time? Okay, so let me tell you, like Docker is the engine actually, like which is running the containers. Okay, and Docker file is a manifest where everything is written, how a Docker image will be built, and once the image is built, that is called an image. Once the image is run, that is called a container. So hope that makes sense. Like when you have an image, it is a static thing, it would not run. But when you like for example, you have a mp3 file, it's not the music, but when you play it and starts playing, so it becomes an instance of the image. So when an image is running, it becomes a container, so we call it a Docker container. And when the image is not running, it's just static, it doesn't have any interaction, it's just a file and stays there. So that is the difference. So image is something which is not running but has everything that is required to run a container. So that is it. All right, Rajesh, so let's go back. So we'll stop at installing Jenkins and then we'll move on to more questions today, and then I think pipelines will cover in the episode 2. So before installing Jenkins, you need to have Java installation done. So that is something we'll have to do here. Just yum install Java. Normally 1.8 version is stable with the Jenkins, so you use these commands which I shared. So that will install Java, and then you have to add a Jenkins repository, and the Jenkins key, and then you can install Jenkins. Actually this step should be after these two steps. I'll fix it. Meanwhile, let's talk. Do we have any security scanning? Yes, we have in AWS, and we will cover it also in the, I think in the episode 2 where we discuss the AWS tools. We will have this these steps, like we will have some test cases, Docker scanning and everything. We have that covered. So Jenkins is there now. Let's go back. Next, what we are going to do is to enable Jenkins, and let's start the Jenkins. Alright, so Jenkins is started. Now we can see the Jenkins dashboard. So how we can see? I'm just taking the IP address of our server, and Jenkins works on 8080 port. So we'll be able to see this starting up. So in a while, when Jenkins is up, we will be ready to install certain packages on Jenkins before it is finally ready for the deployment. So we'll stop there because I don't think we'll be able to have time, but in the next session we'll take it from here, like how to build pipelines, because I don't want to make it very fast and have people not understand half of the things. Let's take some time. If required, we can have 4 episodes, because we are all here. If we are interested, why not? All right, so here you have the Jenkins. When you log in for the first time, you will see this. You do not know the administrator password because it is randomly created. So just copy this path from this page, go back to your server, write a cat command, and you will get a code out of that file. Paste that code. So that will be unique for everyone. So the first time login is done through that code, and then you install some plugins. So in Jenkins there are some suggested plugins. You should just click there and have those plugins installed. So it will start installing plugins. Now what do these plugins do? These allow you to create your pipelines. Some plugins allow you to connect to Git repo. Some plugins allow you to connect to AWS to make the deployments. For example, say your Jenkins is there in some other cloud or on your laptop or somewhere else in your office. So you can connect it to the cloud and make your deployments on the cloud from anywhere. So that is why it's kind of a portable deployment tool. So you can have it anywhere and deploy anywhere from there. Or you can even have it on the cloud, just like what I am doing now. I'm having this Jenkins running on the cloud. So that is also doable. Now this will take some time and install it, and then we will get a dashboard. So better we will carry on from there in our next session, build some pipelines, then move on to the AWS pipeline tools. Let's have some more questions meanwhile, because this will, yeah.
Sorry for the interruption, Mr. Singh. So we'll wait for the questions. So we'll take the questions in the end. So it will be, we will take more time. So we are we are going out of time. So what we can do is we can proceed for the quiz session.
Yeah,
So then
that's right.
later
That's right. And what I am thinking is, because today was some more talking because we were getting started, but from the next session it will be more hands-on, because now once Jenkins is ready, we will build the pipelines, then we'll build AWS pipelines, then we will learn about ECS and those stuff. So I think it will be more interesting in the upcoming. You can take over for the quiz then.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. Anyways, it would be a beginner session, so that maybe so you have covered a lot of things which needs to be understood in DevOps methodology and the culture of DevOps and CI/CDs in terms of AWS. So I think it's really good session for us. So maybe the attendees was clear with the session. If you have a questions, you can ask. We have a questionnaire QA session later.
Yeah.
What is now is a very interesting session that I would be covering is to having a quiz, which this quiz is having some presentation at the end. So it will be a real time. So I'll be opening. I request maybe Mr. Singh, I can take over the
Yeah, sure.
back.
Let me stop sharing.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so I'm here. Okay, so we are now at the quiz moment. Let's go back to the next step. Okay, so I request everyone to check our social media. So we are in Twitter, AWS UG Malta, and Facebook. Also, we have a Slack channel, AWS UG Malta. So you can really free to join these each and every group. You can ask as many as questions you want in the future. It's not about DevOps. You can ask whatever you want in terms of technically. So me or somebody, our speakers can try to help you, try to answer you in the future, right? So now I'm opening up the quiz session. Just a moment, please. Okay, so right here. Okay. Okay, so I request everyone to join the quiz. So here is the way to scan the barcode. It's the same thing that you have done previously. So we have a few questions, nearly 5 questions. So each question is having 30 to 45 seconds of time. So you need to answer as fast as you can. Okay. So it will be displayed you who was the first and who was the last. Don't worry if you answer wrong. Maybe you'll get understand of how you will be clear with the DevOps later. Okay. I request all participants join as fast as you can, please. Okay, in a 30 seconds, in a 1 minute, I'll be starting the quiz. Okay. Okay, I'm starting now. Okay, so I think we are done. So in the leaderboard, congratulations, Mr. Shiva, and you won the prize. So you won the AWS credits voucher of $25. So that will be shared to you in the email. So you can send your email in the chat. So we'll be getting back to you with the voucher code of AWS $25. Thank you very much, everyone. It's nice everyone to sending you the answers. And the second one, Miss Greg also answered out of 5. Also, I can send you another $20 of AWS credit voucher. So you can share your email ID. Mr. Shiva and Greg, please share your email IDs in the chat. I'll be getting back to you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, everyone. And I'll just end by saying certain things. I'll paste those links and the slide in the meetup channel in the comments, so you can get it from there. And in the next session, Ganesh will let you know like when he's scheduling it, and we will continue from where we left off. Like we were here, where we installed Jenkins plugins. So we will create the user, create pipelines, and then move on to the next objectives. Thank you.
That's
thank
great.
you, everyone.
Thank you. So we have now Q&A session. So you can ask now any questions as you like. So
sure.
It's up to you that
if you have any more questions, you can ask. And from the next time also, let's do it this way. Like we can have the questions in the end, because sometimes maybe I am getting diverted out of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to worry. For example, if you miss, you are asking some questions, you can free to post questions in the meetup group of episode.
Yes.
DevOps episode.
Yeah, post it there. Me and Ganesh, we keep looking that page, so we can always come and at least answer you. Yes.
All right. So I think everybody is clear. Everybody is good. So nobody is joining in this. Ask me anything.
They will need some time to again go through it, and then maybe we'll have more questions.
Yeah, that's really great, and thank you very much, everyone. So okay, we have a question. Shall we use a native from Vijay? So yes, this is recorded, and we will be posting in our group. So even I can share you the links in the meetup group, so you can have a look on that. You don't have to worry about that. Even whenever you need me, you can write me personally directly in the meetup, so I can help you on that. So we have a question from Vijay. Shall we able to use native tools like Bash scripts as part of build and deploy the tasks of DevOps pipeline?
Yes, we can do that. Like once you build the Jenkins, in the next session you will see inside the pipelines you can use any script, Bash. You can even use some commands from Python, any library you can import and use it in a pipeline, because pipeline is like a platform. You can put any scripting inside it. It will just execute that in that sequence.
Yes, that's great. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
There is one more question, Ganesh. Let's cover that. What if container gets exited? Can we? Yes, we can do that. There are certain commands, docker logs, and then the container image name, and then you can see the logs, why it exited and whether it was out of memory or anything. We can see that. And you can do docker ps-a, and then you see the all the exited stuff also. We will be doing end-to-end pipeline, in which, yes, we'll do that in the next session. We'll do that. Ganesh, your voice is muted. Your voice?
Sorry. Okay, yeah. So we will be doing these great things in the next sessions, and doing some automation things further. So you can keep watching our meetup group channel. Also follow us Twitter and Facebook. Also a Slack workspace, AWS UG Malta. So you can freely connect me together. Okay. Thank you very much, and happy weekend, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.